Okay, so we now have people joining,
Brilliant. Do you
all
know how many
coming
people
in to
signed
see
up?
us. Pardon my love.
Did many people sign up?
Yeah, they did actually. We had over
Oh,
40, 45. Really good.
that's really good.
Yeah, and we sent a message to everybody. Let me just share it in the water cooler. Oh, I do love the water cooler. What a great name.
It's such a good name.
Who came up with that?
It's good. I was
Oh,
just looking at it the other day. There's some really cool chats going on.
oh, it's so lovely. Everyone's so nice. I'm really enjoying it. I found myself not being on social media much anymore. I'm just on here, which is
Well,
lovely.
yeah, I do think you've really hit on something. I think it's going to be a big trend away from social media and just
You
away
think?
from the AI. Yeah, massively.
Mm.
Surely people get a lot more out of this. It's like instant, like speaking to people and chat rather than waiting on social media for the right thing. I'll see an interesting post that's like 3 weeks old on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Why do I not see that?
Yeah, it's oversaturated, isn't it, I suppose.
Hmm.
There's just a lot of kind of noise on there. Whereas like if you create a little separate space off of those things that's specific to a discipline, I suppose, or a kind of
Yeah,
people sharing a shared value or interest, I think that's going to be the way it goes, to be honest. Might even
definitely.
encourage people to start their own little communities. I think it's
Yeah,
great. It's great. It's no longer
definitely.
about how many followers you've got. It's more about
Yeah,
how valuable, even if you had like 10, if they were valuable contacts, it would be
yeah,
great, wouldn't it?
I'm
Okay.
totally with you.
Right, I have everything ready. I think everyone is here. This is recording, so if people miss it, they can catch up. So welcome everyone. Just to let you know how this is going to go down, we're going to be talking to the wonderful Claire Blythe from Red Setter. She's going to be introducing herself in a minute. Building your reputation beyond social media. I mean, it's a fascinating topic, so I can't wait to get into it and ask, this expert with us today. At the end, we're going to do a really nice Q&A session, and there will be a prize for best question. With complete transparency, I have been so busy running this community and other things, I've not yet thought of a prize, but I will think of something good and relevant to this conversation.
I love
And I might
that.
even throw in some Creative Boom pin badges too. So, without further ado, settle in and we will begin. Welcome, Claire.
Thanks so much, Katie. Thank you so much for inviting me on this. I love what you're doing with the studio. I think, as we were just talking about, I think you're on the cusp of different way of communicating, or maybe a return to actual away from the algorithm communications. I think it's brilliant.
Well, I'd love to say it was pure genius, but I literally was just looking at Mighty Networks one morning whilst eating a banana in my pajamas at the dining table downstairs and thought, I wonder what would happen if I just started something like this. And then within a week, we had 1,000 members. So, um,
That's the genius that you actually then did it. You didn't just think, I wonder what would happen and then go and wander off. I think it's brilliant.
yeah, it's good fun. I mean, we were all getting frustrated with social media, aren't we? And I just thought, I wonder if I'm the only person who wants something fresh and new. Let's give it a whirl. But anyway, enough about me. Who are you, Claire? For people who don't know you, and if they don't know you, I would be very surprised because PR is your master, your
Yeah.
kind of craft, and you are everywhere. You have your own podcast, you're a PR agency, you're doing events. Everybody knows and loves you in the industry. But can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm Claire, and I've been working within brand design since I was like 21, so 49 now, a hell of a long time basically. But my background is all working in the brand design industry. I set Red Setter up 16 years ago in 2009, and it was really marketing generally for design agencies and brand design agencies, and it's kind of developed from there basically. So we really do focus on PR and what your messages are and how to get them out and how to get them out into the media. But it comes from a point of view of like I've never worked at another PR agency. Lots of people at work here do and have done. I run it with my husband and business partner Alex, who's a business journalist. So kind of my experience of how to grow a design agency with his business journalism experience kind of come together to sort of create what we've got basically. But
It's
I love
amazing.
it. We work globally with agencies all over the place, here, the States, kind of, yeah, it's really fun. I enjoy it.
And you've got an amazing podcast. You've interviewed all sorts of big names. Stefan Sagmeister, I think, was one of them. And
Absolutely. Including yourself in the next series, which is going to be very exciting.
come on, I'm nobody, but Paula Scher. Have you spoken to Paula Scher yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah, God, it's
amazing.
the podcast is fantastic because it gives. I mean, the reason I started it was basically to try and open up the world of brand design, so people can, like young people, can see how to form a career in it. Their parents might listen and realize that it's not any penniless artist territory. It's like you can earn money doing this, and it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
But it gives me the opportunity as well to meet people that I never thought I'd be able to meet up with. So Paula Scher, Brian Collins, Stefan Starkmeister, Marina Willer. I mean, God, so many people that I just hugely admire. Loads and loads of others as well.
It,
I'll miss
it
out.
it's great fun. It's great fun, and you're often higher in the charts on Apple than Creative Boom, which is
No way, you're always.
completely unfair. Not that I'm constantly on there looking, oh my God, she's eating me again, that cow. Sorry, just for the audience, me and Claire know each other. We're good. We're
Yeah,
becoming fast becoming close mates, aren't we?
definitely. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
it's great, and it's doing what we do is quite a sort of it can be quite a lonely place, can't it? So
Yeah,
to,
completely.
to sort of share to find somebody who's doing very similar things is very nice, so we can swap tips and yeah.
Yeah, you've given me so much help on the podcast. Katie advised me with all the kit I needed and what I needed to do, and yeah,
I
has
forgot about that.
has made me spend a lot of money.
Yes, yeah, microphones and oh, all the lights and all the things. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
totally. But
That's
yeah, that's
brilliant.
why I want to do the podcast. I mean, want to do this webinar with you now because I think your point of view on this is it's slightly the other side, isn't it, from what we do,
Yeah,
and both together, I think, are really, really
I
powerful.
think, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when we were talking about doing this, we thought it would be really helpful for everyone who is figuring out, what do we do next? If we're not getting the same traction on Instagram, then what else can we do? So this is why we're here. Claire Blythe, why is social media, why isn't it enough now? Or has it ever been enough?
I don't think it's ever been enough, but I also think there's a massive backlash against it at the moment. Um, I think Instagram is a really good thing to have. It shows your work off. It's a good thing, but you can have tens of thousands of followers on Instagram that it won't necessarily support your business. It won't lead to new business. It's like perfectly validly can be lots of students, can be lots of your peers, can be lots of, and they're all really important audiences. But when it comes to getting new business in and growing your business and supporting all that side of it, letting people know what you're really good at, I don't think it's enough. LinkedIn, I think, is really, really good, but it's still controlled by all the algorithms and stuff. So we'll get more into it, but it's yeah, general social, I think needs you need the credibility of the media basically to get people's attention on it.
Definitely. So we're talking about media relations then,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
which
I think
if
I
people
would
don't
say
know what that is, what is it?
yeah, really good point, actually. That's specifically, I think, in this webinar, I think I'm mainly talking about getting into the press. So, getting into the creative press, getting into the marketing press. So, we kind of separate out sort of creative press, marketing press, your sort of marketing week, ad week, that kind of thing. Business press, so Forbes, Fortune, Fastco, that sort of area, and nationals, and a bit of consumer press as well. Some of our clients go for, but it's generally a lot around the creative and the business.
Which is, it seems quite overwhelming if you've never done it before.
Yeah.
But like if you know how to do it, if you know how to pitch yourself to journalists,
Yeah,
then you've got a much better chance of getting some coverage. And the more coverage you get, the more likely you are to get even more people coming to you. So, um,
totally.
Claire, how do we get featured in creative and business media?
Let's
It's
start it
as
off.
easy as that.
Easy as that. It's so how you get featured. I mean, I was going to have a look at like what journalists and editors look for in a story, which obviously you're very good at this side of it. Sort of how to basically what journalists look for, how to craft a compelling story that gets picked up. I'd say a common mistake that I see because quite a few people, certainly when we start working with a new design agency, they'll send me some thought leadership that they've done and said, can you get this into Fasco, or can you get this into Creative Boom, or can you get, and it's often, it's really good marketing material for them, but it's like a really well written blog that could sit on their website. It's really about some thoughts they've had with no real context around it. So it needs to be a lot more. We've got 5 things. So I'd be really interested to know what you think of these 5 things, Katie, that we look for in an article that we think is ready to send out, is good enough to send out, basically. So the first thing we say is it's got to be fresh. So it's got to keep the moving the conversation forward. It can't just be the same point of view that you've heard out there many, many times already. Um, it's got to be relevant. So think about your actual audience that you're speaking to. Say something that matters to them. Think about what might keep that audience awake at night. Think about the problems they might have, but think of relevance basically. It's got to be evidence. So we look for research, we look for case studies, we look for authoritative quotes. Um, it's going to be timely. Like, why now? Why talk about it now? Is there a news because something just happened out in other news that you can say, you know, as oh God, I can't even talk about Trump, but you know, the DE&I stuff at the moment. Let's not go there because it could be a whole other podcast. But we're looking a lot about like companies dropping DE&I guidelines, which is horrendous. But what can how will that affect brand? How will that affect design? And so, what? Why talk about it now, basically? And the last thing would be useful. Make sure there's an actionable take on it. Like, as a result of reading the article, what are the readers going to do? What's the audience going to do? What can they take from it? So, what
Yeah,
do you, those facts got fresh, relevant, evidence, timely, and useful? Does that sound about right to you? Is that?
it sounds, yeah, ideal. So if a press release lands and we read through it and it's got kind of all or most of those things, then it sort of appeals and you think, yes. If it's vague and doesn't really sort of have anything that kind of stands out and there's no kind of hook, then yes,
Mm.
it will be something we put at the back of the trash can, which is
Yeah.
awful to admit it, but we do have to do some kind of sorting through the amount of emails that we get.
How
So
many do
it's
you get out of interest? Like, how many pictures do you get in a average week?
well, if people are watching this and they've never been able to get on Creative Boom, then they'll be reassured to know that we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and submissions every single day, and it is
Wow.
near on impossible to keep on top of it all. What I will do is dedicate a little bit of time every morning to go through everything, and I will be brutal. There will be things I put off in different folders, and there'll be things that I send off to writers because there's some immediacy to them. There's some things that I just sort of put away and say I might come back to that later if we're running short on content type thing. Um, so yeah, it's very overwhelming. So we're always looking for things that we know will resonate with our audience. But there's also an element of why did we start Creative Boom in the first place? To support the creative industries, to help especially quieter voices, underrepresented voices get coverage, because then that's amazing. They get a web link on the site and then they get all the
Mm.
kind of publicity, and then they might get more publicity elsewhere, which is fantastic. And for that, it's a completely different thing. We might approach people, or people might write in and they might just say, here's my portfolio and I've just done this piece of work. So there's the new element. I say, well, that's nice. Let's maybe do a little mini interview. So we're always trying to find ways for people to get coverage, and we try and cover as many people as we can. If somebody comes to us and they've maybe sent something very similar to 3 or 4 other people, we might consider bringing them together into one feature. For example, everybody's pitching International Women's Day stuff at us these last couple of weeks. So our writer Abby Bamford has put together an amazing feature. There's another one coming next week as well, on whether it's time to ditch the label female founder. And we just basically went back to all these people and said, what do you think? And got their thoughts and put together a really nice insight piece. So, yeah, there's lots of things that stand out, but I suppose in that regard, it's very immediate. It's happening tomorrow, on Saturday, International Women's Day. So that's
Mm.
really nice. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're approaching us, that's what we'd kind of look for, relevance, and whether it's new and whether there's something interesting there that's not been said before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's not been said before.
Yeah.
Really important point.
Yeah, it's kind of it's intuitive. So you just kind of, if you've been doing it for what, 20 years, you kind of get used to
Yeah,
what stands out, you know what's going to work, you know what's going to get. And unfortunately, the reality is if we don't have web traffic, then we don't have a magazine. So there's a
yeah.
constant balance of what are people going to read and what's going to interest them without, while still trying to support as many people as we can. I've given myself the world's most impossible job, Claire.
Definitely. Yeah, you don't want to leave anyone out, but you've also haven't got endless amounts of time to be able to go through everything. And so
Yeah.
that's why, like, even getting something in the subject line of an email that's
Yeah.
going to stand out, that really says what you're going to talk about and how to get the attention like that is really important.
It's so true. So how can we craft a compelling story then that gets picked up? I mean, imagine you're an illustrator and you've maybe got a few new projects coming up, or you might have launched a shop. What can they do to sort of make that compelling enough for a journalist to write about?
I think there's different ways of going at it. Quite a lot of the time, what we are tending to do now is pitching stuff that hasn't actually been finished, is more a synopsis.
Hmm.
So basically, to give you some creative control over the whole thing. So you
Love it.
might think this is a really interesting area, but actually, we were going to commit from this angle. So not just writing the whole thing and then sending it out to loads of people and hoping someone picks it up, but just crafting it in a way that's a much more flexible, basically, and a bit more of an iterative process.
And it's more targeted at each publication.
Yeah, more targeted at each publication, absolutely. Yeah, doing
Mm.
blanket emails and sending loads of stuff out just doesn't work. You can just tell, can't you, that if someone's not read Creative Boom and doesn't know what you try and do there, you can tell if it's just a blanket email.
Yeah, absolutely. A nice sort of, oh, I really enjoyed reading these other pieces last week, and I wondered if you'd covered this angle. We were thinking of doing
Yeah,
something like this. I think from your point of view as a PR agency, you've probably got a number of clients that you can pitch at us all at one go. And as you know, us journalists are busy, and if somebody comes to us who knows how to pitch beautifully and can make our life as easy as possible, and they say,
yeah,
Katie, here's an amazing feature idea. Here are three people lined up with quotes that we can provide, or you can interview yourself. And we've got all of the images. You're just like, ah,
yes,
amazing.
definitely. Yeah, getting the right images and making sure the images are just will look fantastic line is so important. And even though we work in the area of design, we still have to advise our clients like that. There's certain things that people look for that I assumed that everybody would just know that and send the right stuff, but still, it just needs to be stuff that looks really beautiful.
A perfect email pitch to me is somebody who's thought, I'm going to give them everything they need first time so that they do not have to go back and forth endlessly chasing for things, because you
Yeah,
only, as you know, have a certain amount of time with the journalist before they've like attention's been taken off and they're dealing with something else.
yeah,
Um, so it's like that first pitch email, provide everything the journalist needs, the idea, the story, attach the press release, provide a Dropbox or a WeTransfer link to all the images, put it all
yeah,
out there. Assume that they're going to run the story rather than, if you want me to send you pictures or if you want me to send you more information,
yes,
I haven't got time. Send me the stuff all in one go. It will be brilliant and we'll work together. And actually, the benefit of being so proactive and knowing my pain points as a journalist is that I then see you as somebody I can rely upon. And I might add you to a list. I have a list. You're on the list, Claire.
that's
I
great
have
to
a list. And every quarter, I will have a list of different features that are coming up, and I will send out to those 20 people on that list. This is coming up. Who have you got that can add a quote to the story? We're doing this theme for International Women's Day. We're doing this for something else. Please get back to me by this deadline. And it's a lot of work because you're then bombarded with a lot of stuff, but then
know.
it's like siphoning it off to all my writers and making sure they're all, they've got enough stuff to play with. So that works really well.
Definitely. Yeah, it's that. I think it's thinking about the journalist and thinking about your end audience. So we're thinking about for news releases, for example. So if you're pitching something out rather than sort of responding to something, it's like just making sure there's ways of writing a news release so it's really effective. We can look at the first sentence should basically encapsulate what's the news, like what's happening and why is it relevant to people. Then you can go on to what's the broader story. So the broader story could be about the brand was in market share decline and something's happened, so they needed to invest in design, or they invested in design to sort that problem out. That we could then go on to talk a bit more about the actual brand of why they invested in design, the strategy of what they're going to do to sort the problem out, what the creative's going to look like, and the rollout of the whole thing.
Yeah.
That kind of structure in a news release just covers all the angles and makes it really relevant. It's even like little things like keeping the language really factual in a press release, so you can still see the work and still see how amazing it is and still see all the audience, but don't describe it as a fantastic rebrand or
Mm.
an awesome this, or because like that's just your opinion. So like strip out all that and keep it as factual as possible.
Yeah.
But would you agree with all that? Is that kind of sort of thing you look for?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know, I used to work in PR,
Yeah,
and we were always taught take out all the emotion, just keep it very factual, keep it
yeah,
to the point, short sentences. I mean, it was really difficult for me because I came from broadcast journalism where you had to condense and take down a lot of information into very short sentences so that you read them on the news. Because what is it, like 1 second per three words? And then I went into PR and had to sort of write more, and it was a really weird
oh
kind of
interesting,
shift.
yeah.
Yeah, and it took a lot of time before I got used to writing press releases. So if people are listening to this and they've never written a press release is purely a statement of facts about a story that you're pitching to a journalist. It's a
Mm.
document as such. You can copy and paste it into an email. You can attach it in a Word document, or heaven forbid, a PDF. I understand why people do PDFs, but they are the bane of my life. I hate them. But
That's really good to know. I think that would
yeah,
be, I'm sure most people wouldn't think it makes any difference, or even a PDF can look more professional.
I understand why they do it because they don't want the copy to be changed. I completely understand it, but from my point of view, if I'm just wanting to extract a quote, it can sometimes the way I sort of upload it, it sounds like I'm copying and pasting and then just using what people have written. That's not the case at all. The way I work is I'll copy and paste things in, and then I'll sort of hash it down and change it into our own thing and add in. Cut a long story short, I hate PDFs. Please do not send them to me. Um, but we're talking, we're going off, and it's my fault, Claire. But we're going off in tangents. But we need to kind of understand why is traditional media and PR such a credibility? Why is it so important to get coverage in the press as a creative professional?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's third party endorsement. So instead of you singing on your all your own media, like your website and your own socials, saying we're brilliant at this, this is exactly what we do, this is great. It's somebody else saying you're brilliant at it, and it's just the way the human mind works. Someone else says it, you're much more likely to believe it. So it can be even say if you are looking, we work with some agencies that are looking to, they've just launched a new arm doing, I don't know, photography or something, like just for example, and they want to get known for that. And it can be one of those things where you kind of just like, oh, we've been doing this for like 2 years now, and still people don't get what we do. They still see us as that agency over there. We get it a lot with pack design agencies that move into the world of brand world and branding, but they're just, everyone still sees them as that pack design agency. If they start talking on their website, or when they start talking about their website, which they should actually absolutely do, about all the services they offer and all the work they do, people still have in their heads that they're that pack design agency. But if they start reading in the media about all the brand world stuff that they do and all the work they've done with other clients, we've had so many of our clients, their clients will pick up the phone to them and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know you guys did X," because they've read about it and they feel that they've discovered it and it feels much more believable than the company telling them. They usually put their hands in the air and they're like, I've been saying that for ages, but it's like they suddenly believe it.
Yeah, it's amazing how powerful it can be, and
Hmm.
it kind of that endorsement might sort of, and I've seen it happen hundreds of times. There might be somebody that gets featured on not necessarily Creative Boom for the first time in the press, an illustrator or a graphic designer or a freelancer. And then the other journalists will go, hang on a minute, why is Creative Boom sharing that person there? We need them on our magazine as well. And then it grows and grows. And then before they know it, they've also become an Adobe ambassador and been invited on podcasts. And it's just like this kind of virtuous circle, isn't it? Of um, uh,
Massively.
oh, it's fantastic. So you
That's
get
the
a
thing.
credibility boost, and
Yeah.
it's
If you look at God, I mean, the ultimate, the ultimate person, I would say, I mean, not one of our clients, but look at Brian Collins. I think it's really easy to assume that he's always been in this situation and he's always been like that and he's always been out there. But he only started Collins 13 years ago, I think it was now. And he didn't have his own agency before that. He tried bits and comes from sort of ad background. But he started speaking like when he first started Collins, and he was speaking in rooms above pubs, and he was speaking in tiny little speaking engagements to sort of 20 people and stuff like that. And he's worked it up to the point where, I mean, he's asked for comment in the New York Times now. He's at all the conferences. I mean, I think this is more his full-time job now, is almost just getting out there
going
and
to
doing all
conferences.
this. Yeah.
He's having the time of his life.
It is. It's amazing. You get to travel the world, and they've got such an amazing reputation. But it's all been sort of purposely built up, I suppose, one step at a time. From speaking
Mm,
to a small group of people in a pub to speaking sort of, at the massive conferences he does, which is
it's
most
amazing.
now.
It's amazing, honestly, it is. And I think the other benefit of getting into publications, and not every online magazine or blog or newspaper will provide this, but you can build links back to your website. One of the things that I always wanted to make sure we did on Creative Boom was put in people's links so that they could build authority on their own web pages.
I love that.
And it will give them a boost in the search engine results pages. How that works now that AI is replacing search, um, that's shifts happening. In the SEO world, they're all talking about engage, AI optimization now, so that if people are using ChatGPT to find stuff, how do you make sure you're at the top of that?
Yes.
I asked ChatGPT as a kind of experiment, can you give me a list of the leading art and design magazines in the UK? And it didn't include Creative Boom, so I told it off. I said, hang on a minute, why didn't you include Creative Boom? I thought we were doing all right. And he went, well, because I know that you're the founding editor of Creative Boom, Katie, and that maybe you wouldn't need that to be in the list. I'm like thinking, flipping heck, it's creepy. And then I was like,
Yeah.
what else do you know about me? And then it listed all these things. And I was like, okay, right, that's enough now. I'm going to like close that down.
Go from it.
Yeah. But that aside, I mean, it's just all comes together, doesn't it? And I
Yeah.
guess social media plays a part in that as well. Um, so it's not that we're saying throughout this that, even though I've been quite evangelical about get rid of your social media, it's rubbish. I've not actually said that. I've said get rid of it if it isn't working for you anymore and you're wasting lots of time on it. Um,
Definitely.
but we're not saying that. We're not saying get rid of social media. We're just saying look at this other stuff that you could be
Yeah.
doing to build your reputation.
They work in tandem. They dovetail really. Like LinkedIn is still predicted to grow by like 22% over the next 3 years. It's still going to be huge. But having your own voice saying something on there is one thing. But if you can evidence that by, and this was an article in Creative Boom, or this was an article in Forbes, or this is an article in Marketing Week, that I was talking on this subject, it's so much more powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, where are we up to? I'm following our little kind of guide. So you've talked through some examples of design studios or creatives who've successfully used PR. We've covered, what makes a compelling story. Um, the next sort of bit that I think we need to cover is building relationships with journalists. It's really important, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, why it matters in the first place. I mean, the most obvious reason why it matters is just exactly what you were just saying. That if you come into an inbox with hundreds of emails in it, your eye's naturally going to go to the people that you know send you good stuff.
It's
So,
true.
yeah, it's because you've got a limited amount of time, and that's the way it works, isn't it? So making sure sort of I've got sort of like a few things of do's and don'ts that I tell my team when reaching out to journalists, and keep it short would be a really top one. Again,
Mm.
a bit of time, and it can be boring to read through a load of stuff. So,
Just you become quite robotic actually.
hmm,
You know, so yeah, keep it short and sweet. You know, you don't have to go into lots of kind of reams of text and explanation. You know, we can get the gist of what you're trying to say in the first little chunk.
definitely, yeah, keep it short. Don't use any jargon. Always
Yeah.
telling all of our clients not to do anything like that. Um, Reaching the right journalist. I know this might sound really obvious, but sending sending a press release out, for example, to an info at the Times or something like that address, just you can dig around and you can ask ChatGPT, and there's so
Oh,
many
can
ways.
you?
Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT who's a journalist, and then you can do more research into that journalist, so you can work out whether it's the right journalist, what they normally write about, what areas they write about, and you can it's really easy to find out all that stuff now. ChatGPT won't give you any personal emails or anything like that, but it'll definitely research into what they've got out there in the media already.
Do you and your team get terrified of emailing editors and just prefer to like email like people who are sort of on the team instead because they know the editor's really busy?
Depends who it is. It's sometimes we've got really good relationships there, and sometimes they want that control and they want that contact. Maybe not control makes it sound a bit manipulative, doesn't it? But they want that contact. But sometimes they've delegated it to all their team. So it really depends what it is. If we're going out with a sports rebrand, then we'll go to the sports journalist that we know covers that kind of stuff and's written about it before. If we're talking about like we're friends with the journalist on Forbes who writes all about B Corps and all that kind of stuff, so we just know that and we'll direct it to them.
You just got to get to know them, haven't you? And also
Yeah,
try and build a relationship with them, which is not easy when everybody else is trying to do the same.
true. I think it is, but just remember that they're also just people doing their jobs, and you're going to get some that are a bit arsy and like aren't the nicest to deal with. But you get that in every walk of life, don't you? Like there are enough people out there. Just keep going.
Exactly, exactly. I love building really nice relationships with PR people. You
Yeah,
know, I love Caroline Roberts at Pentagram. She's great. I'm sure you're
she's
aware of
lovely,
her.
isn't she? Yeah, she's
She's
fantastic.
fab. She used to run a design magazine actually years ago, which I think
She.
was later picked up by, don't quote me on this, but I think it might have been People in Print. But yeah, she's been so kind to me over the years, a real kind of ally. Um, and I met her in person just before the pandemic, I think. Went down to
Did you? I've never met
Pentagram.
her.
Yeah, she's lovely. Maybe we should like get her out and go for a coffee in London.
Yeah, that'd
Um,
be great. I'd love to. So I've
yeah.
done quite a few podcasts with the Pentagram team and different sort of partners there. But Caroline's so helpful in sorting all that out. But it does make a big difference, doesn't it? If you've just got someone lovely person you can rely on for good stuff.
Yeah, and we're all busy, so it's kind of nice to sort of see a familiar name pop up in your inbox and Katie, how are you doing? And that relationship built, in my case, it can be over 15, 16 years. I mean, Creative Boom turns, how old are we? Sweet 16 in July. I
That's
mean,
so funny. Well, yeah, Red Setter was a couple of weeks ago.
congratulations.
Yeah,
Oh my
congratulations.
goodness.
Oh,
That is amazing,
it's
Claire.
not,
You must be so proud.
I am, but also 16. Bloody hell. But
Does
no,
that mean
it's
does that
good.
mean we're getting old?
Yeah, it totally means we're getting old, but that's all right. We're not too old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really bothered about that. I just wish my body would stop breaking. Anyway,
Yes.
um, so we've covered a lot on that. So what other things, what other tips can we think of? Actually, this is a good one. I don't know if you thought of this. I'm sure you have. But if you're doing something very specific like I do, in that we go and look at people's websites without them coming to us. So we might see something on Instagram, which is why it's good to stay on Instagram. We
Yeah.
might stay on it, we see a piece of work on Instagram and think, or LinkedIn I go on all the time, and I spot things and I get in touch with people direct. I go on their website. That's the first thing I do. I go on their website and I look for their email address. And the thing that drives me insane is when they have a contact form. I want an email address. Give me an email address.
Yeah, completely agree.
And have a good about page. Give me some information. Tell
Yeah.
me more about yourself, rather than I'm a graphic designer based in Brighton. Tell me more about who you are. Like, show some personality. And then, like, I go further and I say, and I've done this with a few friends, I've said, look, put a press page on your website
Absolutely.
dedicated to journalists, and direct them to it from your homepage. Say, are you a journalist looking for, if you got a media inquiry, go
Mm.
here. And then on that press page, have like downloadable images of yourself. Get some professional portraits done. I know it's expensive, but there's a really nice photographer in Manchester called Fee, who now and again does portraits, I think for £50, to help people out who are just getting started. There's bound to be people like that in your area. Go and get professional portraits, have them in a folder that's downloadable, have some of your latest work that's downloadable, have your latest press releases, which you can more than write. You are more than capable of writing a press release. It's not complicated.
Such
um
an idea. And that looks good to new business inquiries as well. It's like
so
serious
good.
business that is press worthy.
Exactly. And then when they start getting press, they can put on that press page as featured in
Yeah,
Creative Boom, It's Nice, That, Creative Review, Design Week, all the rest of them,
absolutely.
Forbes,
Yeah,
whatever that they've managed to get into. It's not an easy thing to do, PR, but once you get the kind of wheels turning and you understand what you need to do, it's like anything,
yeah.
isn't it? Knowledge is power and confidence. And
That's exactly it.
once you've got a process and you've got everything in place, I
Yeah.
don't see what can stop you, really.
That's it. And that's the other bit that I wanted to cover is just how to maximize that PR that you do get. So, like, use it in new business proposals, use it in your presentations to show that third party endorsement again. Like, put it on your website, share it on your socials. Like, even for like, if you're trying to recruit people and stuff like that, if you're working with a recruitment consultant, send them all your press coverage, because then people want to work with. So you've got your current team who will feel like they're in the right place because they're in a really exciting team. But then you've also got new potential hires that can see the coverage and think, wow, I want to work there.
Exactly. It's endorsements, isn't it? It's like winning awards. We might it's an it's a necessary evil. Is that is that good to say? But it does help. It does help build your reputation, and
Yeah,
get
massively.
get people saying, "Oh, I saw them, on LinkedIn, or where did I read about you, and here and here and here." So yeah, it takes a bit of work, but it will bring lots of results. Um so repurposing media features into marketing assets, we've talked about.
Yeah.
How do we use PR and media going forward as part of a longer term strategy?
It can be. So I was talking to one of our clients this morning actually about they're really repositioning their business at the moment. They used to do quite a lot of the lower hanging sort of document production and that kind of thing. And basically it's work that's going to be taken or is being taken by AI. So they are looking at, they've made some really good hires and they're looking at moving further up the chain, basically into more brand strategy work. So basically trying to tell people about that. They haven't quite got the work they want to talk about at the moment. So we can't really do huge amounts on news and getting them out there in that sort of way. But we can talk about thought leadership and we can talk about where they want to be. So we're coming up with areas at the moment of what's going on within the business world, that what keeps the sort of boards, CEOs, CMOs up at night. What can they help with? And they were saying, but we haven't got any examples to talk about. You can use other people's examples. Usually it can be better as thought leadership to use examples that you haven't done yourself. So you can
Yes.
start to move people's minds along that you're in this space, when in actual fact your work's kind of historically been over here. You start talking about stuff in the right way. As long as it's genuinely yourself and you're not spinning it off in any sort of way. You're just talking about an area you've got a lot of expertise in. I haven't quite evidenced it so far with your own work.
just for just in case somebody here doesn't understand what thought leadership is, can you explain it?
Yes, thought leadership is basically we use thought leadership. It will be a bylined article in a publication, say 800 words, it could be 1200 words, something like that. And it's your point of view on something that you're an expert about. So I always describe it as just getting the expertise out of your heads, collective heads or one individual head, and putting it out there in the world in a way that's going to answer your audience problems.
Great.
That makes
Great.
sense.
Yeah, totally. It makes sense to me. I knew what it was, but I
Yeah,
thought
but
I'd let you take the heavy task of explaining it. Because it's insight, isn't it? An opinion, and it makes you appear as an expert in your field for
yeah,
sharing. Yeah.
absolutely. We do all sorts of stuff on, we've got a thought leadership piece going on with one of our clients that's going to go into FASCO on succession planning within a larger design agency. We've got pieces going on about, oh God, all the stuff. I know it's ridiculous, but the Gen Alpha marketing, what they've all that, it's so generalist, but the specifics within it that we're sort of drawing out at the moment. There can be all sorts of things of how you can sort of change industries and how design can change that.
It's brilliant. I think we've covered everything, unless there's anything you want to sort of add. And I'll just use this momentary break just to say to the audience, please add your questions if you have any. If there's anything that we've missed or you're curious about, no question is too simple or too small. We haven't figured out all of the answers yet, have we, Claire? And I don't
Not
think
at all.
we ever will. We're always learning, always growing. Um,
Changes, doesn't it? Like the media landscape as designers, it
oh,
changes all the time, and it's getting quicker and quicker and quicker with AI and stuff, which is really exciting. But it means we don't have the answers to everything. But
you and I have had quite the disruptive career. We both graduated into a world where, printed media was still queen, king, whatever we want to call it.
absolutely,
And then literally overnight, the internet changed everything,
yeah,
and it's been one massive shift after the other.
yeah, yeah, really exciting stuff.
It's why we look so slim and so young and
Totally.
yes, kept us on our toes, kept the energy going. Please do ask some questions. We'd love to know if you have any thoughts on this. Um, so I think PR is one of those things that people, if they're not familiar with it, it sounds like a mysterious thing, but really it's just about managing your reputation and message across different channels. And those channels might be Instagram and the rest of social media, they might be your own blog. I mean, actually, that's a good one to sort of say. You in the PR industry, you talk about owned, paid, and earned media. What do all those mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, owned media is your own channel, so your website, your socials, stuff that you've got complete control over, and stuff that you can put your own marketing messages on because you can do what you want. The earned media is, I always think earned is a bit of an odd description of it, but it's
Yeah.
basically the PR side of things. It's not paying for, it's getting into Creative Boom, it's getting into the business press, it's all that kind of stuff. It's writing really good stuff that then gets out into the media. That yeah, it's the sort of the stuff you're earning through your own expertise.
Hmm.
And then the paid media sits in the middle of it, where you might want to put out certain articles or expertise like that you need to pay to get out there. Basically, it could be
Sponsored content.
sponsored content, could be advertorial, it could be anything like that. Yeah, all three I think are really valid and can be used in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. We're gonna sort of ask people in the audience for some questions. Everybody's been a bit quiet and shy now. Oh, here we go. We're getting some in. So we've got Denise. Hello, Denise. Is there a rule of thumb as to the best time to send a press release, like first thing in the morning or beginning of the week? Also, what are the absolute no-nos?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We tend not to on a Monday. It's that Tuesday, right, to get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, ideally a Tuesday. Tend to do it in the morning, wouldn't really send one out at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah,
That
I
sort
think
of, would you agree with that? Is that
I agree. I think Friday's a bad time to send anything because it's just end of the week and all the journalists are just exhausted and want to
Yeah.
go home.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, Monday is usually the sort of catch up day, isn't it? When you're sort of going through lots of things and
Yeah.
planning the week. And then Tuesday, you might sort of be on top of things, have a cup of tea, and you've got time to go through your inbox.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Um, okay. Do you recommend, says Sheena, managing this all yourself or bringing on a professional to help? Oh, it's the $1 million question.
Yeah. It's obviously I suppose I am the professional to help. So, but even given that, it depends what stage you are in your career, and it depends if you're a one man band or not. Like if you're a one man band, don't come and hire Red Setter because it's too expensive for what you're actually do usually, but it's about too expensive for what you're doing. But if it's as you grow, our clients normally start at agencies that are sort of 15 to 20 people, that kind
Hmm.
of thing, sort of
Yeah,
getting towards like 1.5, 2 million turnover or something. That's when it's kind of when they'd hire someone like us. But
justified.
before that, before that, there are freelancers, there are people that can just write up news releases for you. You can get people to pitch them out. There's loads of different ways of doing it. And it is totally possible to do it yourself, to send a news release out. And I think when you get to the business press and the thought leadership side of things, it can get a bit trickier because you don't know exactly what they want. But you can do your own news release and stuff like that. It's almost just what's your time better spent on.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose what we could do to add to that is don't just rely on this side of marketing yourself to get get your reputation out there, to get yourself out there. Start a podcast, start a blog, do all these other things that you're in control of. And pitch yourself for speaking events, which to some might seem terrifying, but they can open up a world of opportunity. I've seen it happen countless times with friends in the creative industries.
Yeah, start. I mean, I'd say start with podcasts if you're nervous about it, and then start with small speaking events and
Mm,
small community events, that kind of thing, and work your way up.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
yeah,
But otherwise, Sheena, you can definitely learn how to do it all. It just takes a little bit of kind of dedication. But once you sort of know what you're doing, you can really, um, build momentum. I would say it becomes quite straightforward. Yaz was saying, not a question from me, just really interesting to hear more about this world, even if I'm a designer. Haha, thanks for this. Bless her. Thank you, Yaz. That is fantastic. Yeah, it feels like this whole industry is just cloak and mirrors, and unless you've kind of worked in it or had experience of it, it can feel a little bit daunting, I think, when you say media relations, PR.
yeah, yeah. It can almost feel like it's not for you,
Mm,
but just get in contact with people and get stuck in, and no, at worst you'll be ignored. That's kind of it. So like, if you the better you get at it, the less you will be. There are skills involved in it. So
exactly. And you'll have, if you start building relationships with people and journalists and editors and whatever on LinkedIn or going to events and introducing yourself,
yeah,
finding out who those people are that run those magazines, and then you never know, something might come out of it. They'll remember your name. Oh, it was lovely to pop into, lovely to bump into you at the event in Sheffield. And then something might happen. We're all human, aren't we? We all want to sort of like support and help
yeah.
those that we're aware of and that we know of. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. We have no further questions at this stage. So I think, is there anything you would like to sort of add, Claire, before we wrap up?
No, I think that's covered it all for me. I think that's really
Yeah,
good. I really
I think we've
enjoyed it.
done quite well. We stuck to almost, 45 minutes.
Not bad.
I really enjoyed this. It's nice to know that. Oh, hang on, there's one more that's come in. Dionysus says, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Apart from the design, creative, marketing publications, it would be great to get into publications that the clients read. Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because it is business to business, isn't it? That we're talking about. Would that be the same
Yeah.
process?
Yes, it is the same process. It's also when you say that the clients read, if you're sharing stuff on LinkedIn and you've got a design publication like Creative Boom, the clients will still be reading that basically if you're in LinkedIn with them in the right way. But I don't technically believe that many people sit down with a copy of Retail Week anymore. and read it from cover to cover, or even just look at the website and really go through all that. I just don't think people work like that. I think they filter it in different ways through looking at LinkedIn and looking at different sort of ways of getting it through their phones.
Mm.
So I think it's the same process. It's a really good point. Though the one type of press I didn't mention was sector press. So quite a lot of our clients will want to get into Retail Week, they'll want to get into the grocer, they'll want to get into pharma publications like pharmacology publications. There's
Oh my gosh, the NFU, gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It used to
totally.
be one of my clients.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm aware of all the farming press.
Yeah,
Those journalists were lovely.
but it could be like there's so many different sectors on that. It could be like TV press. It could be there's so much stuff. It's the same process. It's the same. Who's the audience? Think about what they want to know. What keeps them awake at night? What's the? I feel like everyone's got an insomnia problem, but you know, like what bothers them? What's going to sort of be going through their minds? What's going to make them read the article and think of you guys?
Exactly. I mean, it's like choosing topics for these live events. We know that people are
Yeah,
interested in, they're making a shift away slightly from social media and trying to find other things. So, what would interest your audience?
yeah.
Pip asks, how can creative freelancers, she's a photographer, I think, tackle not having the budget to get a PR person? Are there any resources that can help us, perhaps? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a Well, good. I don't know much about the sort of the photography side of things specifically, but I would say getting into creative communities. So that sounds, I was worried about sounds a bit contrived, but if you're talking to people like, in the studio space, you're going to meet people who need photographers. So I'd say it's kind of that kind of thing that you can still send press releases out, you can still talk to people about this kind of area, but get into the communities and meet people.
Yeah,
And
so
real life as well.
there's a lovely photographer in Manchester called Fiona Finchett, and she has her marketing down to a T. She is doing so well. She has very cleverly made herself one of the leading photographers in Manchester in the Northwest for events and PR kind of shots that are required. Sometimes a PR agency like Claire's will send a photographer out to take some shots of a
Mm,
story if it's big enough for their client and then send those to the press. So she goes to events, she's smiley, she gets to know everyone, everyone knows her. She's a lovely, lovely human. She shares her processes and her work on social media, but she's also always on always at everything and really kind of gives back to the local community. She does this thing, I don't know if it's once a month or once a quarter, where she just offers her services to do portrait shots for creatives who haven't got the budget, £50 a pop. But just think, those creatives in a couple of years' time might be running agencies, might be working in house at brands.
yeah,
She's not being kind of like, oh, I'll do something because I'm expecting something in return. She's not like that at all. She's wonderful. She'll be doing it out of, very altruistic, very kind and giving back because she's probably making enough money elsewhere. The whole point is, though, long term, she's building valuable connections, and that is just,
yeah,
and she's just great. So go and check her out, Fiona Finchett, and she's on LinkedIn. She's just, honestly, I use her as an example every time somebody says, "How can I grow? How can I connect?" Well, think about what you can give back,
yeah,
because people will love you, and they'll say, "Oh, we need a photographer. Oh, I can recommend Fiona." There you go, easy.
yeah, yeah. Very
Problem
good.
solved. Right. Well, this was absolutely fantastic. I think we opened up quite a lot of things in this kind of mysterious sphere. But if anybody watching this has any other questions that they didn't get a chance to sort of ask, then we
Yeah.
will be keeping an eye on things in the studio on the event listing. Do just drop a comment and we'll do our best to reply. Okay. Thank you so much, Claire. This was amazing.
Thanks, Katie. It's been really fun.
Oh, and enjoy New York, and we'll catch up in London soon.
Definitely. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.